Call to order the Grant County Board of Commissioners special meeting for July 25th, 2017. Welcome, everybody. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the flag of the state of New Mexico. This is a symbol of perfect friendship among the United cultures.
Are there any changes need to come to the agenda?
No, sir.
Commissioners? Yes, sir. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion to approve the special meeting agenda. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Number 4. Approve or disapprove Resolution R-1733, the final quarter financial report year ending June 30th, 2017. Did you want to go over that? Okay.
The fourth quarter financial report is for approval, and I can highlight the general, the road, the jail, and the airport fund. In the general fund, we had a beginning cash balance at July 1, 2016 of $3,291,793. And revenues that we received for the fiscal year were $13,721,491. We had transfers out of $4,125,119. and expenditures of $9,330,790 with an adjustment of $8,698, and this was an audit adjustment, leaving us with an ending cash balance of $3,566,073. And the required reserve was $2,332,697, leaving us an available cash balance of $1,233,376. In the road fund, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we started with a $305,251 balance. We received revenues of $707,203, transfers in of $777,373, expenditures of $1,645,719, leaving us with a quarter ending cash balance of $144,108, and the required cash reserve of $137,143, leaving us with an available cash at the end of the fiscal year of $6,965. In the jail fund, we started with a zero cash balance. We received revenues of $882,436. We had transfers in for the fiscal year of $1,955,892 and expenditures for the fiscal year of $2,685,599, leaving us with an available cash balance of $152,730 at the end of the fiscal year. In the airport, we had a beginning cash balance of $143,737. We had revenues of $579,838 with transfers out of $28,536, expenditures of $694,801, leaving us with an ending cash balance of $238 in the airport fund. The grand total ending cash balance for the entire fiscal year, and this includes all the funds, is $10,655,193. And when I say all funds, I'm including fire protection, law enforcement, laundry's tax, grants, debt service, court recording fund, capital projects, and all enterprise funds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions on the financial report?
I did have a couple.
Sure.
Thank you for answering earlier questions today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. I wonder if you can give us a sense of how that top row available cash line at the very end, the $1.2 million, of how that compares to what we predict at the beginning of the year in general over time. I noticed that the current year,
Excuse me, Commissioner, which page are you on?
sure, I'm on the top page of the financial report.
This one?
Yeah, the very first row is the general fund, and the available cash at the end, which is how much more we have in cash investments than the Department of Finance and Administration requires us to have,
Correct.
is an important number, right? That's the number that we look at to see how comfortable we are with possible additional spending, or how important it is we think that we make additional cuts. And this 1.2 million is quite a bit higher than the 350,000 or so that we're projecting in the FY18 budget, right? So I guess I'm trying to get a qualitative sense. I don't expect you to give me numbers right now, but off the top of your head, does it usually work the way it works when I budget at my school, that number throughout the year increases because we start with a reasonably conservative estimate of expenditures and income, and then as things become clearer, the amount of cash we have left over goes up. And so we usually end with a figure there that's higher than what we started with. Is that an accurate description of what happens with county budgeting?
I would say that it is, except for we really don't see that number increase until the end because the majority of our taxes come in at the end of the fiscal year. The majority of the revenue that's generated, the big revenue, like for example, your PILT doesn't come in until the end of the year. We don't get the second half copper production, and of course your property taxes that come in towards the end of the fiscal year. So actually, we don't really see it jump up until towards the end of the fiscal year,
Okay.
rather than earlier on.
Right. So then I guess what I'd be looking for is a sense over the last, 5 years or so, when all the numbers are in, has it been the case that that number has ended up well above where it started?
No, I would say that this year we have a pretty high cash balance there because there was a decrease in expenses compared to previous fiscal years.
So this change is larger than usual?
It is.
Okay. All right. And I guess I'm trying to get that sense because I do have a suggestion for what we do with some of our cash in this coming budget. And I don't want to make that suggestion if, in fact, some years that number actually goes down. So I'm trying to get a sort of a track record.
And then another
And if you want to add anything to this, Charlene, I think you should feel free.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing? Another factor is that in the property taxes, when we budget that amount in previous years, we were going more with an estimated of an actual for that fiscal year, but DFA recommends that we go with the previous fiscal year, which is what they have on their website, so that's also going to be another factor on it.
This year we went with last year's actual rather than a projected?
Correct.
And I saw elsewhere that the projected is increasing like 1.5%. Is that right? So we didn't go with that additional 1.5%.
We did go with that 1.5% increase because we received more revenue property taxes this year than in previous years.
Okay.
So instead of the 93% that we normally get, it was about 94.5%, 95% this year.
Yeah, right. I'm just realizing that it looks like we've gone with a 1.5%. What we saw here was compared to budget rather than compared to actual.
What she's trying to explain is, and it depends a lot on whoever your budget analyst is at DFA, and it fluctuates. I'm sure you may deal with this in re-education. We have to utilize the collection rate that they have reported to them that's through our audit. Or a lot of times they'll kick your budget back and say, well, you have to use this collection rate that we have published.
Even if you have reason to think it might change.
Correct. even though we think we know more what's going on in our own county, they make you
How
change
dare we.
it too. They make you change it according to, there's a section in the audit that's reported, it's a 10-year history of the collection rates. And this is what I was trying to get
Yeah.
Mr. Amadatis to explain to me why there was the difference from what he's showing and what they're showing, because it is submitted via our audit. So we usually are required to use that figure. But depends on your budget analyst too.
Right.
Now we have a
Okay.
new one.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Clarifying question on what Harry is saying. Is now the right time to do that?
Yeah, I have a second one, but you might as well stay on this
I
topic.
guess my question is, are you guys talking about the budget, or are you questioning the actual validity of the report that we're approving?
Not the validity of it, but I am talking about the report that we're approving.
Right, but should we approve this report and then use this report to talk about what you're talking about, what you want to talk about during the budget?
I guess it seems the same to me. I'm happy to do that, although my next question is really just about this report.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my next one is just if you can explain the rationale for the requirement that we have 3/12 reserves in general fund and, what is that, a 2/12 reserve in, 1/12 reserve in road, and none of the other funds have any required reserves at all. Can anybody explain where those came from? Right, but presumably there's some rationale at some point for that law.
They feel that you should have a year's worth of operations and a month's worth of operations. That's
Just in those funds.
just in those funds.
I mean, we
do
can,
too.
to some extent, we can manipulate what we have to have in reserves by putting money in other funds and not showing it in this fund.
You could.
Okay? All right. I didn't expect a rationale, but I was hoping.
You'd have to ask the legislature what they were thinking when they did that, and it's been a long time. We've been 3/12 for 20 years.
As long as I've been doing this. And one thing I might add, in my 16 going on 17 years of doing this, the available cash can fluctuate depending on what's going on in your county. I've seen it go up, I've seen it go down. You might think you were able to project expenditures or revenues and may not. You may have surprises like secure to rural schools, those sort of things. And in my history, when this available cash grows beyond a number that you feel comfortable that's you invest that money, and although you're not generating much interest at this point in time, you can make short-term investments to try to generate a little bit more income, rather than it just being there and thinking you should spend it.
Okay, so then I have a clarifying question also. So your question to Linda was about the available cash number, and does it stay the same or grow? So it's projected
Whether
to
we have
be
a track record
significantly
in
less.
effect. Right, so at my school, I tell my governing council, here's my projected carryover, or sometimes it's a deficit, right? But over the course of 10 years of doing this, I know we're likely to come in 50,000 more than that, right? So I was looking for something along those lines. And I didn't hear that very certainly from Linda.
What was your beginning cash at the beginning of this year? Nearly $3.3 million. Isn't that right?
That's right, 3.3 almost.
So now it is 1.2.
No, that equivalent number is 3.566, right? The 1.2 is what's left over after DFAs.
Oh, true. True. So it's up,
About 300,000.
Yeah,
250.
right. And I wasn't looking so much in that fluctuation, because that's what we get to decide. I was looking more in our track record in projecting revenues and expenditures.
I guess what I'm saying is in the 3.2, there was, no, that's not true, never mind.
What I would need,
They're not very far apart, I guess is what I'm saying.
no, those two aren't. What I can do, I'm sure I can find these, and so I will do this because I'm curious, is just look over the last 5 years or so, what we said at the beginning of the budget year was going to be our carryover, and then what did our carryover end up being? That will help me answer my own question.
So you want to know the accuracy of that projection.
Yeah, right. Not because I'm challenging the accuracy, but because
it's a planning.
Yeah, I believe there's usually an approach to doing this that results in a bias on the conservative side, which I support. But I want to have a sense of what that bias is.
We're thinking back on numbers that I can recall off the top of my head in the audit. This is higher than it's been in the last 2 years since I've been here. That was my goal personally, is we needed to build this up so that we were in a little bit more sound financial condition instead of it being 100, 200.
And it's funny, because I know what you're saying, is we got 312s to protect us, but if you go under the 312s, the DFA comes down and starts dealing with you, even though you have 312s in reserve. That's like the minimum. You can't be under that.
You don't ever want to go.
You don't
into
want to
that
play in that
reserve,
line.
even though it's technically a reserve, you don't ever want to play
It's
in
not
that
reserved to
pool.
them.
Not to them, it's not. And they will come down, and then they require, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but they will come in and monitor you on a monthly basis rather than a quarterly basis, and how are you going to rectify this situation, and they will let you dip into that for a few months at a time, but you better have a plan to get out of it.
So is that reserve, that required reserve, do we have the authority to invest that as we wish?
You know, I think you could, but you would have to do that in very short term, because there's times that in between, before we have property tax revenue come in, that we do maybe get a little close to that. I think the only safe money that you would look at is your available cash to invest. Because that's in excess of what you require.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move we approve this fourth quarter financial report.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve R-1733. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is to approve or disapprove Resolution R-1734, the final budget for 2018, right up until we decide to do budget adjustments. Can I get a motion? One way or the other?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we approve resolution number R-1734. I'll second that motion.
There's a second.
Sorry.
I thought it was just going to be over and we'd be done today.
Sure, we're totally that.
Okay, there's a motion and a proper second to approve R-1734. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Commissioner comments?
Stunned. I would just like to say, I really appreciate Linda and the amount of time that Linda and Charlene spent with me as a new commissioner going over this stuff. I've had a lot of questions, and I really appreciate the time. And I also want to just acknowledge that the assessor has also spent a great deal of time with me talking about property taxes and revenue for the county. I really appreciate the amount of effort that the county and elected officials have spent on this. Thank you.
Other commissioner comments? None today?
I'll go ahead and mention this, because I suspect it was part of why you looked surprised, but I would like us, in a few months, to revisit some of the staffing questions we've been discussing. And I think you've told us we will, so I just wanted to remind you I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Further comments? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.